Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Fab's in the house, and today I'm in the house with two beauties. Right over here I've got the Skiff Knives Drifter and the Holt Bladeworks Haptic. Really cool knives, and we're gonna check out some similarities and differences. But hey, don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this kind of content right over here. So let's see what do we have here, because these are two beautiful knives. Both are made in USA. They are both CNC machined knives, relatively similar in size. There's some similarity in the milling, but there are some differences, of course. So price range also is something very similar, because these guys are running around $900 table price, something in that ballpark. Of course, depends on the configuration you're gonna choose. You start adding some mokume, some damasteel, and the prices are gonna go up. So let's check them out. First of all, you're gonna see that the Skiff Drifter is a frame lock and the Haptic is a liner lock. So that's the main difference between these two guys. And you're gonna see that both have a very cool and wavy, look at this mesmerizing patterns going on. Very similar wavy pattern, but you're gonna see that the Skiff is more like has more like a 2D kind of milling going on. So this surface is flat, and you have two angles, two chamfers basically on the surface, and they're gonna give this 3D kind of look. But the Haptic has more 3Dness to it. Like, if you can see, like these lines are fantastic. Maybe from here you see that it tapers down, so there's a little bit more 3Dness to it, a little bit wider chamfering all around. Whereas on the Skiff there's just a little bit narrower chamfering on the edge. Of course, if you check the back, you're gonna see they are both sporting a titanium backspacer. The Skiff in this case is using just a nicely polished and kind of like teal anodized titanium backspacer, and the Haptic just has, in this case, this is just a nude Haptic, so it's gonna be in the nude backspacer as well, with some nice milling, whereas this guy just has like two chamfers and this triangular area right over there. Very nicely done. The Haptic right over here on the right has a centering backspacer, and you can see the blade is perfectly centered in both cases. But for the Haptic is just like using 100% of the length of the handle, whereas the Skiff just a tad right underneath the end, the heel of the handle. So just keep that in mind. Construction wise, they are both employing titanium slabs. The Haptic has some internal milling, some internal skeletonization, which is beautifully done. You can check my maintenance video to check out how it's built under the hood. And if you notice, the Skiff, it just doesn't have anything, and that's gonna reflect on the weight for sure. If you check on this side, you're gonna see some other differences. Of course, you have Haptic with a hidden pocket clip screw, so it's screwed in from the inside, whereas the Drifter, has two screws which are matching the other sets of screws. You have two screws for the handle in both, and one pivot, of course. They are both sporting like the same Torx bit screw needed for the pivot, which is a T15, and both are sharing the T8 Torx bit screw needed for taking down the handle. You have two extra screws visible for the Skiff right over here, and invisible in the Haptic. You check you can see over here there's a nice detail, which of course is only in the Skiff because this is a frame lock, and this is like the cutout relief for the lock bar, and you see it's nicely milled as well. In this case it's just like it's a liner lock, so it doesn't really make sense to compare any of that. What it makes sense to compare is the detent system and the Lockface interface. So you have a very different approach. The Haptic is a liner lock and has this kind of like integral detent, which is like detent ball, and at the same time is just basically like touching the tang of the blade. And it's very interesting. It's made in steel, so there's no need for stainless steel lock face insert, whereas on the Haptic you have a frame lock with no stainless steel lock face insert, so you're gonna have titanium up against steel, so that might cause some lock stick issues, but in this case none that I experienced. So far so good. Also, you see that of course the haptic being a liner lock, it will have a natural over travel stop bar, because like this scale right here is gonna prevent you for overextending the lock bar. In the case of the drifter, you're gonna have this pivot collar, really wide and huge and beautifully anodized. That is gonna be the over travel stop. So nice and clever design right there. Of course, the skiff has two pivot collars. These are separate pieces, anodized, and the haptic does not have any collar. You're gonna notice that the area here to disengage the lock bar is designed differently. In the haptic, you have a little bit of lock bar sticking out, so it's pretty easy to disengage like that. And here you have the classic milled grooves right over here, so not too bad to disengage the lock bar. To just jam your thumb in and you're done, basically. Also, of course, in this case, you have like a matching clip, backspacer, and screw anodization. In this case, you just have like a nude haptic, but this configuration right over here can be found easily also in the haptic. So matching pivot, matching clip, and backspacer as well. You're gonna see that the clip for the haptic is gonna leave you something like that out of your pocket, whereas for the drifter is gonna have your knife sticking out of from your pocket a little bit more. Also, another set of differences can be spotted in the blade shape, because the haptic is more like a sheep's foot kind of profile, whereas the drifter is a little bit more, you see, like Warncliffe kind of affair going on. And they have also some other similarities. So for example, if you check the overall length, let's do it in inches, the overall length of the drifter is going to be 7.75 inches overall when open, and the haptic is just a tad shorter at around 7.4 inches overall in length, with a 3.25 inch long blade for the haptic, and pretty much same length in cutting edge, maybe just a tad shorter for the skiff, and with an overall blade length considered like up to here, let's say, of 3.5 inches. So you see, like overall length is shorter in the haptic, but the overall cutting edge is longer in the haptic. Therefore, handle to blade ratio is in favor of the haptic, which is gonna pack a little bit more cutting edge in a shorter length handle. So just keep that in mind. They have both fantastic blade grind. They are both hollow grind. In this case, you have a dual tone finish, satin primary bevel and satin swedge with polished flats. Really cool. And you have also like a polished spine, which is just gorgeous to look at. Of course, sterile blade and 100% belly. You have a gentler belly in the haptic. You have a more pronounced hollow grind. In this case, you have a stonewash finish all over the blade. Also, you find a nice swedge, but also you find a nice jimping going on right here, which is absent in the skiff knives. Look at that. Stock thickness, I think on the haptic is a little bit thinner, so the haptic is going to be a little bit a better slicer. It's thinner behind the edge. It's sporting a sharpening choil, but the drifter is sporting also a nice full finger choil. Really functional, absolutely usable, and a little bit of thumb ramp, not jimped, to just have a further grip like that. So it's going to be feeling pretty good, taking advantage of the finger choil right there. Also, another difference you can clearly see is the flipper tab design. Look at this. So Skiffin is employing something a little bit pointy, which is, I mean, you can still do like a push button like that, but it's a little bit pointy, especially because you're gonna hit this side. So you want to maybe just stick with your light switch like that, but there's no jimping going on. So it's a little bit slippery, and it's nicely rounded off, nicely chamfered. So it has a nice feel. It's not sharp, but it's not as grippy as the haptic right here, because you can see there's some jimping going on. It's shaped like with this upswept kind of design, and also it's chamfer. So push button is going to be less introducing less finger soreness when you do it for an extended amount of time, and if you do light switch is going to be just perfect because of the jimping going on right there. Perfect grip. If you're checking the action of these guys, so both of these guys are running on bearings. Of course, this guy is running on skiff bearings because they produce them, and this is just running on caged bearings with some hardened steel spacer / washer. So the action, for example, of the haptic is going to be very snappy and quick when opening. And the skiff as well is going to be very pleasant. But look at the closing action. So the drifter, as soon as you disengage the lock bar, of course, the blade just drops shut like that. There's a free fall right here. As you keep the blade in an upward position, there's nothing going on. You just need a gentle wiggle, like really gentle, to have the blade getting to the closed position. Very nice gliding control action. For the haptic, you just have to disengage the lock bar like that, and the blade is just gonna drop. And as soon as you rotate the handle, the blade just sits in a very controlled way, not as gliding as that. It doesn't need like any wiggle as the drifter does. So you just have this beautiful and super smooth action for the haptic. So that's just a little difference that I wanted to point out. Another difference, of course, is going to be the sound. The skiff is nice and crisp and clacky. The haptic has very different sound, feels a little bit drier when you close it. Very smooth and dampened. And the skiff is a little bit higher pitched, thick. But the opening sound, I think it goes to the skiff. It's more rounded, it's more like full. And I think overall it's a little bit more pleasant and less resounding than the haptic, but they are both sounding pretty good. Ergonomics, they are, I think, on par. I probably prefer, because I have big hands, I prefer a longer shape. For example, for the drifter, it feels a little bit safer, feels my hand a little bit more, but the haptic has better ergos, has some nice jimping. I love this finger groove right here. It's just, it's sitting in my hand just perfectly. And of course, this finger groove here is missing on the drifter. And also another difference is going to be, of course, the weight, because of the amount of materials employed. So let's just check it out real quick, how much is going to be weighing in the pocket. The drifter is going to be 4.48 ounces, and the drifter is going to be 3.7 ounces. So there's some difference right there for sure, and that's going to be felt more, of course, in the case of the skiff, because there's more material, is a little bit bigger, there's no skeletonization, the stock thickness is a tad thicker. Another little difference I thought to point out is that they are both using this part of the blade to engrave something to. This is like M390, so the steel employed, and this is just like a polished area to show off their logo skiff, and that's the only place where both these guys have decided to put a logo, and I really love that. It's something really cool. There's no lion logo like here, like you have in the Spectre, for example, and there is nothing going on the outside, of course, because on the inside you have the skiff logo engraved right there. And also you have on this side over here the serial number and the model name, as well as the haptic. You're gonna have to probably check on this side. Maybe here you see the model number, the model name, and the brand as well, just like laser engraved. I think it's on the inside, so another little similarity, just with some slight differences. But I mean, overall, both these two knives are fantastic options for the mid-tech crowd. If you like mid-tech blades, you're not going to be disappointed with any of these two guys. They're both fantastic. They're not very expensive, of course, but they're both looking amazing. Great ergos, great sound, fantastic slicer, great blades. And if you like Warncliffe or ship's foot blade and some crazy CNC milling skills, one of these two guys is going to be for you. So there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned.